Hey guys! So I've been really wanting to make more clothes for my American Girl dolls. I changed their outfits at the beginning of the year, but uh, when I was filming the video where I was moving them around and changed my BJD's clothes, I realized that I really don't have a lot of outfits, especially for 3 dolls. I have basically 2 everyday ones for Felicity and then a Christmas one with her Christmas dress. And the rest of it is outfits that are, can be mixed and matched, but I've really been wanting to make more clothes for them to have more options for different outfits for them. So I'm going to be taking the next week or so just making a bunch of different outfits. Let's go over to the table so I can show you what I've got. Okay, so I have the American Girl pattern books from the early 90s, which is the first 6 original historical dolls. I've printed off a bunch of the outfits that I really liked, and then I picked only a few of them to actually cut their patterns out for this video and the things that I want to make. So some of the things that I have is Molly's blouse, which goes with her jumper. I also have Addie's school blouse, which goes with her school dress. Kirsten's pantalettes, which is a form of underwear. I was thinking of maybe making some like cute puffy bloomers shorts to either wear on their own or to like wear under skirts, since all of these are skirts. I don't think there's any pants in these patterns. Kirsten's school dress, which has a huge skirt pattern piece. This is half of it. This gets placed on a fold. I didn't realize it was going to be that big. And then Molly's jumper. Like I said, I have the blouse, and this is the jumper. And you can see it says Molly's jumper or skirt, which means you can do the skirt portion of the jumper on its own. It's just a skirt piece. So I'm kind of thinking for Molly's jumper, I'm going to do at least one full jumper and then a couple different of just the skirt. For Kirsten's school dress, since there's so much fabric needed for the skirt, I'm probably only going to make one. For the pantalettes, depending on how much fabric I have, I only need 2 pieces of this size, and that is it. So we'll see how much fabric I have and what I can use, but maybe a couple of pairs. And then for the 2 blouses, I definitely want to try a couple of different fabrics. So let me show you the fabric I have. I have a bunch of options. So the first one is this fabric. I actually bought it from Joann's during their closeout sales. During that sale, I kind of just picked a bunch of random quilting cottons that I thought maybe I would want to use at some point. And I was getting like 4 yards if they had it, if not, whatever was left. And this was one of the ones that was just whatever was left, and there's only a yard of it. So it's not enough for me to really do anything for myself, but it's definitely enough for me to make Kirsten's school dress, since it requires so much for the skirt portion of it. So that's what this fabric is for. I then dug through both the fabric bin under the table and then the fabric bin next to the table to see what I had. I definitely want to make at least one blouse white, so I just grabbed a bunch of my larger pieces of scrap of the white cotton that I use a lot of the time. In the bin, I also found these, which are left over from me making something. This fabric was also purchased at the same time as this fabric. I don't remember how many yards there was, but it was enough for me to make and to not finish a pleated skirt, a school skirt, so it's not too long. Also found this scrap. It's only this wide, and however long the original bolt was. This is leftover from years ago when I made the tiered skirt, if you've seen that video. I also found these scraps. Now, long before I ever had a craft room, my mom had a sewing box because she knew a little bit of sewing, and you know, we have it in case we needed to do any kind of repairs. And for a long time, that was the only place that I had for my supplies. So scraps would go in there. And this looks like it was a scrap from, I thought it was from being cut off of a pair of like khaki pants, but it's not. It's straight fabric from the bolt. So I actually don't know what this fabric is from. And then this one, I believe I had purchased a small section of it, like less than a yard of this, with the intention of making, I think maybe this was used, maybe this is not the fabric I'm thinking of. Maybe this was fabric left over from making my pirate costume years and years ago, because I have a waistcoat that's blue on the front, and this had been cut into, yes, I had cut into it myself recently, but these kinds of shapes make me think it was used for an actual pattern piece. So I think maybe this was actually from me making my pirate waistcoat back when I was like in my early 20s. And then the last two scraps from the bin under the table are these two fall fabrics. I believe I used this fabric to make a mock-up for the Shenanigan pants years ago, and then I had since cut into it more, and maybe this was as well, judging by the angular shape of this section. I don't know if I'll use these two since it is May and I'm definitely looking more for bright colors at the moment, but it's good to have options. Next, from the bin next to the table, these are all scraps from other projects. So this is some linen that I had tea stained. I had made a shirt out of it, and there's still quite a bit here, but I definitely feel like for the blouses and the pantalettes, a lighter weight fabric is better than one of the quilting cottons. I then also have this scrap from making a skirt many years ago, and it definitely has enough here for me to make something out of it. This is from, more of the tea-stained linen. This is from a shirt that I had made, a pirate shirt, my first attempt at it, and it turned out too tight, but this definitely looks big enough for maybe one of the blouses or the pantalettes. And then I have this scrap from when I made my casual Lolita fashion dress that there's a decent amount here because it was, I think, too much for the skirt. Yeah, there's a decent amount here. Definitely can make either pantalettes or a blouse because it's a very lightweight. I think it's cotton. It's very soft, but it's very lightweight. Some more scraps from another dress that I made. Might have enough, but again, this is leaning more towards fall with this orange color, so I probably won't right now use this, but I pulled it out just in case. This is left over from a project that I made for my partner. And I honestly kind of want to make something for her American Doll. She has Samantha. It's an original Pleasant Company from when she was young. And I kind of want to make something for her because this fabric and the next three fabrics are all left over from projects that either I had made for her or she had made for herself with my help. So we also have this very cute blue plaid with lemons on it. This pink linen-like fabric is a decent chunk of it too. And then a decent chunk of this, which is the same as this fabric. This fabric is, everything is from Joann's. Well, except for this one, my partner actually found for me in a thrift store. But other than that, everything is from Joann's. And this fabric with the little embroidered flowers, I guess, on it came in both green and pink. And this one I had actually tea stained myself. So it used to be a bright white like this. Now it looks like this. And I kind of want to see if I can make something out of these two, maybe for her. I am seeing her this weekend, but I don't know if I'll have enough time to make it by then. If I decide to do it, I'm honestly on the fence about whether or not I want to make something for her out of these fabrics for her doll or make something for her. So that might be not used at all for this video. We'll see. I have a lot of choices. And I definitely want to make more than just 2 blouses and maybe more than just 2 skirts using the Molly jumper skirt portion of that. Same with the pantalettes. I definitely want to make at least 2 to give me options. I also have another pattern for American Girl. I had purchased a pattern to make a doll carrier, like the ones that American Girl sell, but I don't want one of those because it's bright pink. So it means I would be able to make this out of whatever I wanted. I haven't printed that one out. That one comes with some clothing options as well, more modern stuff. That one comes with pants pattern, a shirt pattern, and a jacket pattern, I think. But I definitely want to make a pair of shorts, maybe with the khaki fabric. I don't know, I haven't decided, but I would want to use the pants pattern and just cut them shorter to be shorts. I haven't decided yet. I would have to print that out, but for right now, let's do something simple and do the pantalettes since it's only 2 pieces. And I'm going to use, I think, this fabric. It's not a lot here, and I was thinking of using this for the pantalettes. So I decided to zigzag stitch the edge to such a large piece, forgetting that because it's such a lightweight fabric, it really messes everything up. The tension makes the ends curl and pull in, and yeah, I think I'll just do fray check. That's what I was gonna do on like little pieces like the blouses and stuff. I'll probably still do zigzag stitch on Kirsten's school dress skirt because that's a huge piece of fabric. I just didn't feel like waiting for the fray check to dry.
I gotta follow my rainbow. I can't stick around, I gotta keep moving on. I died right at the end, but I won.
I mean, that's just life, man.
I know how to sew pants on doll clothes. Why am I reading this? I'm once again faced with the fact that I basically have to interpret these instructions because they're so vague. So after I get the whole bodice part done, it tells me to fold the waistband in half like this, and then baste it to the bottom of the bodice, and then never mentions the waistband again. It then tells me to stitch the skirt backs to the front. I did that. And then to make the pleats in the front of the jumper, which is here. I did that. Press pleats firmly in place, top stitch as shown on diagram. I did that. Baste tucks on skirt front and skirt back. Oh, what? I didn't see that. There's the mistake. I just had to read it. There's one more tuck on either side here. That's where that extra space is coming from. See, I just gotta read it again, and then you'll figure it out. Okay, so the instructions are so vague, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with the waistband. It literally tells me to fold the waistband in half with the pattern side out, and then baste the raw edge to the bottom of the bodice. And I didn't do that because I skimmed the instructions and it doesn't mention the waistband ever again. And I'm pissed because what am I supposed to do with it? So I continued with the skirt and did all that instead of doing that step first because I wanted to know what I was supposed to do. So I'm doing it my way. I unfolded it and folded it into thirds like this. And the plan is to sew the bodice to one edge along the fold, the skirt to the other edge along the fold, and then top stitch so that this lays flat. Maybe run, I don't really have a decorative stitch on my machine, but maybe run something along just to keep this edge folded down. Because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, if I follow the instructions, it literally would end up with the waistband as just a flap sticking out from the middle where the bodice and the skirt meet. And that's not enough information. Like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to press it up, press it down? Is the sewing of the Velcro in going to keep it tacked down? And yeah, I got some vintage catalogs, so there are photos of this outfit in there, but it's not like high def photos. These are old catalogs, and also like it's not a focus on the dress, it's a focus on the entire school set. So like it's hard to see it, and I don't have Molly, so I can't look at this dress, and I don't know anybody who has Molly. I'm on a doll server and I asked them, but I haven't gotten any reply yet about, anybody who has Molly and has this dress that can show me what it looks like. So I'm doing it my way. I mean, that is one of the joys of knowing how to sew, is that when you come across stuff like this where they don't explain it well enough, I know enough to be able to do it however I want. I just don't want, this is the one thing, I just don't want, because this fold is more than 1/4 of an inch. I think one square is 1/4 of an inch on this fabric. So I just need to be careful that I don't sew too deep into the skirt or the bodice and make it too short. Not that that's that important, I want it to look nice, and I don't want the bodice to look really short because I sewed so high into it. I'm still gonna do it my way. I'll figure it out.
It's about this sort of typical terrain, so it's gonna be 20 up the stairs. 15 heads.
7 plus 6 is 13.
13 over mouse damage threshold. What does that look like? You just start biting into it.
Yeah, I think I'm just like as animal as possible.
so close to being done.
It's fishing rod. You know,
I just tried it on Emily and it doesn't fit because of how much it got folded over in the back. So I now need to unpick the Velcro and unpick both sides.
I might have to DIY a second in my life. A copy. I feel like I need to that's sort of easier, and then I'm going to get the 5,000 across today. And that's probably my main goals for the day. And this whole program, I think those are just going to be images in the area of the couch for something else with us.
Okay, little update. I finished the jumper skirt, Molly's jumper skirt. Even added some embroidery to spice it up a little bit. Kirsten's pantalettes. Last you saw them, I had put elastic into the bottom. And I had noticed after I finished sewing them that the elastic on one of the legs looked like it didn't quite get caught on one side after I had finished sewing it. But I was like, it's fine. You know, it should be fine. Well, last night I was looking at them and I was noticing how tight the leg holes were, and I was thinking, oh, they look a little tight, because like once the elastic's sewn in and all that fabric is in the way, it makes it look a lot smaller and fits a little bit tighter. Not to mention some of it gets eaten up by being in the seam. So I was looking at it and I was kind of stretching it out to see if it would fit, and the one that didn't quite get caught pulled free. The whole thing pulled free on one end and was just in there. And I'm like, well, that's my sign to take the elastic out entirely. Because I also noticed, I'm pretty sure both Molly and Samantha have underwear as part of their set that have like bloomer style bottoms. And then like a shirt tank type top or some kind. I don't know. I know Molly's, it's like a tank top style and bloomers. I'm not sure about Samantha. But yeah, so if I really want to do the like puffy bloomer look, I'll look at Molly's and see if that's what I want to use instead. These are fine. These are fine. I might just use them as like a baggy short and not even put them under dresses. Or I put them under the Kirsten school dress that I plan on making. The next thing I want to work on is a pair of pants. Now I mentioned having a pant pattern. McCall's sells a pattern for a doll carrier, like a backpack style doll carrier, and in it is also some clothes, including this pants pattern. Now the pants is meant to be more of a fitted pant with an elastic waistband. Actually, it's a lot like these. This is Emily. She's wearing part of one of the original meat outfits for the American Girl of Today outfits. But yeah, these are straight-legged, elastic waistband pants. And I think that's what these are supposed to be. But I don't want that. What I want is a pair of shorts. Like denim shorts or khaki shorts. And I have this fabric, which I showed you at the beginning of the video. It is, I noticed, stretchy. It has elastic in it. I honestly don't even know why we have this fabric, because I can't think of anything that we own that would have been made out of a stretchy khaki color fabric. The blue fabric that I also showed, I think I know what that's from. Like I said, I think it's from the waistcoat, the pirate waistcoat that I made. But this fabric, I have no idea, because I don't like working with stretchy fabrics. One of the beautiful things about patterns, and once you start to get more comfortable in sewing, is that you can take a pattern and you can change it however you want. Now this pattern, as you can see, it's a straight leg. It will end up looking like straight leg. It's a bit close, just like the pants that Emily is wearing, close at the ankle. I don't understand why this is different. Like, yeah, fold line for the elastic casing, the waistband, but this one doesn't have it. I haven't looked at the instructions yet because I just printed these off yesterday and I put these together last night. But anyway, I what I want is like a pair of kind of baggy, summery shorts. Like camp counselor shorts, something in that kind of vein, something that gives like the vibe of 90s fashion, which is something that if it's not historical, it's 90s fashion. That's what I really enjoy with the doll. That's why I bought all of the original meat outfits for the non-historical dolls, because they invoke late 90s, early 2000s, which was when I was a kid. I was born in 1990. So that's literally the time when I was a kid, late 90s and early 2000s. So I want the shorts to kind of invoke that. And I know enough about sewing to know how to make these work in that sense. So what I'm going to do, I want to look at the instructions to figure out this whole mess. But then once I know what's going on with this, I am going to put these, I think I'll just trace them out on some paper and then start to adjust the lines. So obviously the one part I will not change. Oh, you couldn't see what I was talking about. This thing. Why is there extra waistband on the back piece but not on the front piece? Is that better? Maybe? I don't know. So what I want to do is I'll keep the crotch seams the same because I need those to stay the same. I know that they are designed to fit dolls like American Girl, but I want it to be more flared or at least straighter. So I would probably go straight down and straight down. And I almost want to widen it on the outside edge so that I can like pleat it up into the waistband. Let me actually see. I want to see something. Place it right there. Yeah, I think this pattern's literally like the pants she's wearing. Yeah, so these will be a fitted pant. Also, she's missing a sock because when I bought this off eBay, it didn't have one of them and I didn't realize. But I plan on getting another one. Or getting a new pair. Anyway. Yeah, so I think that's what I'm going to do. I figured it out. Only the back gets an elastic band. The front doesn't. Oh, that's bullshit. I almost did that wrong. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't need to cut it out. I don't need to cut out 2 pieces. I can cut it out on the fold. No, I can't. Because if I cut it out on the fold, that means half of this will be on her butt. And that's not where this piece goes. It's the front, not the back. Okay, so I finished the khaki shorts, and there's some tweaks that I want to make to the pattern. The added length here on the sides was definitely too much, and the added width on the sides was too much, and the added length was a little too much as well. So the hem, I had always intended on folding it up in reverse, so it kind of looks like you have rolled up your shorts or whatever to make them shorter, but it was still too long. I also didn't account for the hem because the original pants pattern is tapered, and I decided not to make the crotch seam get tapered in. There we go. I left the since the original pants pattern is tapered, and I left the crotch seam, the inseam, not the crotch seam, the inseam, I left that tapered as well. I didn't add any seam allowance, but where I cut it off to be this quote-unquote seam allowance where it gets folded up here, it needs to come back out. Come on, focus. There we go. Like on the original pattern. It's so, but it flares back out so that when you fold it over, it lines up with your pant leg, so it's no longer so it's basically the same. And I didn't think about that, so I have this on the inside, which is fine. You're not really gonna see it. I also had a length problem. The fronts are longer in the leg, but when I sewed them together, they were shorter. Well, so the side seams, it's perfectly even here, but here you can't see it because it's under the waistband now. The back piece was longer, and then it was the reverse on the inseam where the front piece was longer, and I don't know how to fix that without the hem being. The only way to fix that is to sew them together and then hem them. But because I want it to look like this, I didn't want to have this seam allowance on the outside. And I've done this once before for a different doll. It was a BJD, so the proportions were different. But I believe what I did was I sewed the side seams to a point normally and then stopped. And then clipped it a little bit and reversed it and sewed where the hem would be in the opposite direction, so that when I did the fold over, you didn't have this ugly seam allowance showing on the outside. I believe that's what I did before. So I want to fix that issue, make them a little bit shorter. So take off probably about an inch off the bottom, maybe more. I also want to make the waist shorter, because right now on a doll, let me show you real quick. So because the crotch seam is so long, because I didn't change that, the original pants pattern is very high-waisted. So in order for it to have the crotch seam actually sit where it's supposed to be, the pants have to be literally under her armpits to fit the way I wanted. I wanted them to be short and flared. You can see her knees are right here. But to do that, I would have had to get it to fit and to stay like that. I would have to fold it over a lot more than I want. You can see here's the seam, the Velcro. Here's the Velcro on the one side, here's the Velcro on the other side, and it's basically being folded over a lot, and it creates all this extra bulk on the butt that I didn't want. So to put the Velcro where I want it, right at the edge, it ends up making it too loose, and the pants have to sit much lower, because I also didn't want it up under her armpits anyway. So now there's all this extra fabric here. So I want to lower the waist, raise the hem, and I also decided I'm going to get rid of this extra width on the back piece only because it just adds a lot of extra bulk back here that I didn't think about. And I also want to maybe make this half an inch shorter. I measured this by using just the width of the ruler. I believe it's about an inch. Actually, I can... Yeah, so the ruler itself is an inch wide. So I was thinking of maybe making this half an inch. So taking off half an inch. And the seam allowance, I think it'll work. I think it'll work. I think that's how I want to do it. So raise the hem by an inch, lower the waist by maybe 2 inches, and remove the extra width on the back and make the extra width on the front half an inch shorter. That is the plan. Oh, what am I making them out of? So the first pair, khaki. Second pair, and I hope I have enough because I have less than I realized, or less than I remembered. I want to make a jean pair of shorts. So I have khaki shorts, I now want denim shorts. And I have this scrap from a pair of jeans that I had hemmed years ago. I just unpicked the original hem to try and give me a little bit more length. I think even with the original size, it fits now. So with the reduced size, I might be able to ignore this entirely. Hell, I can even make it part of the waistband. My issue is, do I have enough folded over? Yeah, I'm going to be reducing the side here, and this one is also going to be getting reduced. Oh, it's cutting it close. I don't know, but I'm going to fix the patterns first and then see if it will work. And here they are. It took 2 weeks for me to make all of the outfits. Let me show you one by one. So the first thing I started with was Kirsten's pantalettes. I tried to put elastic in the bottom of the legs, but one of them pulled free, so I just removed them entirely. Next was Molly's jumper skirt from her school outfit. I ended up not making either Molly or Addie's blouses because it was taking too much time. I didn't want to have to spend another week making more clothes. I'll make them eventually. So there's no shirt. There's, as you saw, there was a shirt with it, but that is a shirt that I already had. It's not the one technically supposed to go with this one. This was the first multiple pattern piece that I did. Obviously the pantalettes, it was just one pattern piece. Very easy. This one had multiple pieces, and as I had said earlier when I was working on it, I was having a lot of issues with it. In the end, it turned out really good. The whole waistband issue, I figured it out on my own. I did it my way. I also did embroidery on it. It's very subtle, but I just wanted a little bit of something. Something that I didn't show in the reveal is that it doesn't fully cover the butt. When I first put the Velcro in, I had folded over these two edges, and it had been folded over too much. As you can see, there's a lot of a big difference between this edge and this edge. So it had been fully folded over like that, and that made it too small for the ends, the two back pieces to even meet. So I unpicked those stitches so that it will fit, but that does mean that it doesn't quite fit here. There's a bit of a gap right where the butt is. I don't know what I did wrong to have it turn out like that. I thought I had done all the pleating correctly, but I guess not. I don't know. I still really like how it turned out. It is very cute. I'm glad I picked this checkered gingham pattern, because in the pattern it tells you to do one piece of the front bodice section normally on the straight grain, and then the other one on the bias. And if you use a plaid, just like the original has, well, the original is plaid, this is gingham, it causes the front bodice piece to be on an angle, and I think it's actually a really nice detail. I didn't like it at first, but the more I looked at it, I really liked how it looked. After that, I was trying to make my own shorts pattern. I really wanted a pair of khaki shorts since I had found that khaki fabric. And my first attempt turned out a little long, and it doesn't sit, it sits at what would be the natural waist. Not, I don't know how to put this. It's more like the hips. The body's just a tube. It's kind of hard to be like, oh, this is the waist, this is the hip, but it sits a little low, and because if it sat at the natural waist or whatever, it would be folded over too much in the back. And I wanted the Velcro to be right on the edges, which is pretty standard. But because of that, it ended up being a little long on them, and it's still a little loose-ish. And there's a lot of extra fabric. As I talked about earlier, I added width to make them, to have the pleat in the front, not realizing that I would also have to do a pleat in the back, and it's really big pleats, and I think they're really cute, but I wanted to try it again. So I did it again with some leftover denim that I had from a pair of jeans I had hemmed. I only had that one scrap to work with, so the width that I took off that I had added on, I took the width off, all of it off of the back pieces, but I think I left like 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch on the front piece. But because of how little a material I actually had to remove all of the width that I had added, so it was back to its original width to fit the fabric that I had. Something that I didn't think about is that the back piece on the original pants pattern is supposed to have an elastic in the waistband on just the back. So naturally the back piece is already bigger than it needs to be so that it actually has something to cinch in with that elastic. And because I didn't think about that, I ended up having to put pleats in this one as well. I don't mind it. I think they turned out really cute. I probably could have switched my thread out to be yellow to make it look a little bit more like traditional jeans, but I did not feel like doing that. The only time I changed out the thread color was for the embroidery on the jumper skirt. I did not feel like changing my thread for every project, especially since basically every fabric that I'm using is a light color and white is perfectly fine for that. Yeah, here are the shorts. I definitely want to take even more width off of the back pieces now that I remembered that they're slightly bigger than they need to be because of the elastic waistband in the back. And I have a little bit of the khaki fabric left. I want to see if I'm able to make another pair of khaki shorts that are a little bit more fitted without it being too fitted, but that'll be for another day. The next thing I made was Kirsten's school dress. I had this fabric, as I was talking about at the beginning, that I had only a yard of, and because the skirt requires so much of it, I figured this is the fabric I would use. I love how this turned out. Now, the thing about the American Girl pattern books is that the only kind of closure that they ever tell you to use is Velcro. It's on the pattern pieces, it's in the instructions, is Velcro. The thing is, with this one in particular, I was having a really hard time with the Velcro on the cuffs because they are so small. Adding Velcro but also having a folded over edge here so it looks neat and all of that, the Velcro became too bulky. So what I ended up doing was adding very tiny snaps that I have. And since I was doing snaps on the cuffs, I ended up doing snaps down the back. I couldn't get the collar snapped on Sammy, but I can get it snapped closed on Emily. But yeah, I really like how this one turned out. One thing I didn't do is that on the skirt, it's supposed to have two pin tucks that run horizontally across the entire thing. They're called grow stripes. And it's a historical thing where they would, when making dresses for young girls back then, they would add extra length into the skirt that can be let out when they start to grow taller. I didn't feel like dealing with the pinstriping because they were very small, very close together, and it's a very long piece of fabric. So to get that perfectly straight and even, I just didn't feel like doing that. So instead, I just gave it a really big hem. You can see it's a very large hem, which American Girl actually had a video on some interview website. I want to be like Variety or something. I don't remember, but I saw it recently. And in it, the woman showed a historical dress of that time period as a reference that they had used for making Kirsten's clothes. And the grow stripe was actually an additional piece of fabric sewn to the bottom edge and then became the inside of the hem. So knowing that, I'm like, I'm just going to do a big fat hem instead of a tiny little one. And it makes it shorter like it's supposed to be. One thing that I definitely had trouble with was the gathers at the front of the bodice piece here. It's a very small section in the front that has gathers and then a slightly larger one down at the waistband that has gathers. And for the one on top, when I do gathers, I find that the very ends don't actually want to be gathered up because I guess there's like no tension at the edge of the fabric as opposed to all the fabric in the middle. So with this one, it being such a short amount of stitches, 4, maybe 5 stitches here, there was no tension. I couldn't keep the gathers to actually stay in place. All I was doing was causing the bobbin thread to move back and forth without anything actually being gathered up. So I ended up just doing 2 really tiny pleats at the collar. For the waistband, I was able to do the gathers, but I was having a hard time getting it to like lay flat so I could pin it in place. So what I ended up doing, with everything pinned right sides together with the gathers right at the middle, I took the 2 ends of the bobbin thread and held them in one hand as I kind of pinched the 2 sides of the fabric together so that I can then start pinning it together. And by holding the 2 bobbin threads up like that, it caused them to touch and completely cover up all of the gathers that I had put in, because I pulled them in too close. I basically, here are all my gathers, and I just went whoop, and I just covered everything up. In the end, it doesn't look bad. I just wish I could see the gathers a little bit more. The last thing I made was this cute little dress. Now, I had no pattern for this, but I used Molly's blouse to get the collar and the bodice pieces and the top of the sleeves. I ended up just kind of guessing on how long I wanted the skirt to be and cutting out a length of it that was as long as the piece of fabric that I had. And for everything else, I was just kind of guessing on how long I wanted it to be. It ended up maybe a little bit longer than I wanted. I think I wanted it to sit a little bit higher, but I think it turned out really cute. The sleeves are super poofy, and all I did was run an elastic through the bottom. I just folded it up and stitched it closed, and then just ran an elastic through it. And everything else is just basically the same process as Kirsten's school dress in construction, except for like the gathers at the front here and with a different kind of collar. Now with this one, I wanted it to be baggy. I didn't want it to be really tight. And Molly's blouse pattern had some instructions in there that, 1, I wasn't going to do anyway, and 2, was really confusing. And they kept mentioning of it's indicated on the pattern, but there was nothing on the pattern or the pattern pieces about what they were talking about in the instructions. So it is very baggy. See if you can see that. And there's a lot of excess back here, but I didn't want to actually pull it that tight and have it be, I didn't want to pull it that tight, and I didn't want to have like all of this excess fabric that I would have to either have like a lot of it folded like on top of each other or folded over and then have Velcro or whatever. But I also found that the collar pieces actually met the edge of the fabric. So to pull it that tight would have been weird anyway. I don't know. So what I ended up doing for a closure, because I didn't want the collar to be pulled too tight, otherwise it would cause it to like stick up and stuff, is I did a hook and eye right at the top of the collar. And then I have one snap right here. And I think it works perfectly fine. Yeah, there's nothing here. And there's nothing here. But honestly, it sits pretty flat and you can't see anything like the jumper skirt where there's a gap. There's no gap. So it worked out perfectly fine. I really like the fabric that I chose for this. I was debating it between a couple different ones, but the tiny print really works because it works in scale for an American Girl. All in all, I had a lot of fun working on all of these outfits and creating a couple of my own. I'm definitely going to make more American Girl doll clothes at some point, but I'm a little tired on working on teeny tiny little things. So I'm probably going to make some things for myself next. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy crochet, sewing, or any other kinds of crafts, please consider a follow. I upload every Sunday, and I hope to see you there. Bye!